Well, today's a bummer of a video, guys. I'm Megan. We're back in the library. We're going to talk about the 5 most disappointing books that I read this year. So now it's not that these are the 5 worst books I read, but some of them are, but they're also just super disappointing because I expected them to be so much better than they were. So for example, I'm not going to put one of my lowest rated books on here because I didn't expect it to be good. Instead, these are going to be just true disappointments. The definition of anticipatment, as we say in the roller coaster world, that we're anticipating something and then disappointed in it. So the 5th most disappointing book this year was Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. I just had such high hopes for this because everyone talks about this book and says how amazing it is, and I did not find anything spectacular about it. I thought the music aspect was over the top, like where it's supposed to be they're a band, and there's a lot of references to like rock music and stuff, and I don't know, I couldn't get drawn into the world because of that. I think it took me out of, the suspension of disbelief. I just couldn't do it, and then there was nothing super appealing about it. Like the characters were fine, the plot was fine. I guess I just had such high hopes because everyone talked about how it was one of the best books they'd read. Some people, it's their favorite book, and I just didn't get the hype. So the 4th most disappointing book I read, and this is really sad because I think I gave it 3.5 stars, and it was a decent book. Like I enjoyed reading it, I guess, but there was just something about it that just did not live up to how I thought it was going to be one of my new all-time favorites. And I'm probably still going to continue the series, but that is Sinlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. I honestly hate to even put this on here. It's just that I had such high hopes, and the first maybe third of the book, I really enjoyed it. It was really good. But then things started getting even weirder, and I just thought it was going to be more like the character progressing through different levels of this tower, and each level was going to be something really interesting, and that's not really what it was. He was stuck on certain levels for a really long time, and it got to where at the end things connected in a way that I didn't think that they should. Like if this tower is so massive in this book that you can lose your loved one and never find them again, which is what the plot is. He loses his new wife there when they're on their honeymoon and spends the entire 4-book series, I guess, trying to find her. If it's supposedly that massive, then how does he keep running into the same people, and how is it all connected in the end? That seems really, really weird. And I thought his character development was a little too fast. He went from just being this naive, bumbling, guy who wants to rely on his tour books and thinks that those will tell him how to navigate this tower, to realizing that none of that's true, but suddenly becoming very seasoned at tricking people and figuring out the secrets of the tower, sort of suddenly he can do these things, and just somewhere halfway through the book it just changed. It's like he went through a couple bad things, and just a couple traumatic events just helped him to be able to do that miraculously. And I just feel like I should have taken more books. I could see where at maybe at the end of book 2 or something, he starts to kind of become more of a seasoned veteran when it comes to the tower. But I just feel like it happened too quickly in this book. And like I said, I'm going to continue the series because I think there is high hopes for what could happen. But if I don't like book 2, then I don't know if I'll keep going. The 3rd most disappointing book is actually an ARC that I received. So it is Curse of the Specter Queen. Now, this is my first and only ARC. I think I mentioned it in another video before, but of course an ARC is an advanced reader copy. I signed up for NetGalley and said that I was both a librarian and a booktuber, so I was approved to read quite a few ARCs apparently. And this was the first one I tried. I made it halfway through and realized that I didn't like it. And as a reader of an ARC, you're supposed to read the book and then write reviews and things like that of it and make content about it and stuff, but I didn't like this book, so I didn't want to power through it. That was just a waste of time for me. So I realized that I would rather wait and see other people's reviews and not review them myself, because I don't want to be forced to finish a book. I would rather just DNF it and be done. So I wound up DNFing this and then deciding never to read another ARC again. So this kind of ruined the experience for me, but there was nothing good about it. Well, it's not that it wasn't good, it was just blah. The premise sounded really good. It was like an Indiana Jones type adventure story, and it was just meh. So number 2 and number 1 are both pretty epically disappointing. Like, these books were actually terrible. One I DNF'd, and I hesitate to even put DNFs on here like I did the last one, but it was just that I wanted to look forward to it so badly, and that's why it was so disappointing. And so that is number 2, Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. So I have looked forward to this book for like a year. When I first found out about it, like last November or whatever it was, I could not wait for this book to come out. It looked like a new take on like Interview with the Vampire, and I loved the cover, and the atmosphere sounded awesome, and it was going to be dark and gruesome and gritty and very adult, but it's not. It sounds like young adult, but it sounds like if you know, if you went into Hot Topic, basically, if Hot Topic were a vampire novel, this is what it would be. It was trying to be like super emo and just dark, and had all these ridiculous sounding names in it, and just the way they would talk to each other was ridiculous, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so bad. And I think if I read it again or actually tried to finish it, because I didn't finish it, as almost like a comedy, I think I could get through it because it's so funny. And maybe I could vlog the experience of me reading it. So anyway, maybe I'll try it again just to be funny, but it's like 700 pages, and I'm just not gonna read that. And the number 1 most disappointing book that I read all year is no surprise, especially if you watched my other video about my favorite books of the year, because one of my all-time favorite books of this year was A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. And guess what? This the most disappointing book I read this year, A Gathering of Shadows by V.E. Schwab. It is the sequel. It is the second in the trilogy, the Shades of Magic trilogy. It's a sequel to A Darker Shade of Magic, which had so much promise and was so good. And this book was so much bigger, so I had such high hopes for it to be even better than A Darker Shade of Magic. And I just didn't know how that could be possible, because Darker Shade of Magic was the best book that I had read in like a year or more. And it got me out of like the reading slump that I was in, and finally got me back into reading, really, after having the baby. But this book was so bad. It was pointless. It was like they took the awesome premise of book 1 and then just decided to do like a little side fun quest thing. It was basically the Triwizard Tournament from Harry Potter. Like, literally 2 other countries came to the main country to compete in a tournament where they had champions compete in various tasks, you know, or like fighting each other. And you're like, oh my gosh, it's basically like Triwizard Tournament. But it wasn't good, though. That was the problem. Nothing mattered in it. And then I read book 3, and it was also disappointing, but at least book 3 I knew would be bad. Like, I went into it just having no hopes, and it was a little bit better, but I still honestly recommend that you just read the first book and just know that it's going to get worse, and that you just stop there. So those were my most disappointing books that I read this year. How sad that I had to put V.E. Schwab on here, because I feel like I'm really going to enjoy her writing, and I really want to read Vicious. We'll see if I give her another chance, though. So guys, let me know what are the most disappointing books that you read this year, and I will see you again in another video. So have a good day. Bye.